light of in light of Alec Baldwin's shack up, I would like to welcome you to firearm safety training with Red Pill in the Wind. But where are my manners? Hello YouTube, hello MGTOW, hello Red Pill, and hello firearm enthusiasts everywhere, and military members. Please feel free to check me at any time in the comment section in case I shack something up. We're going to start with the conditions. Condition 4. It's been a while since I've reviewed them, but I'm gonna try to do this by memory, or with some visual aid, in accordance with the help of pause cinematics with this YouTube screen. We're gonna start out with condition 4. Condition 4: magazine not inserted. Weapon on safe. Basically means that weapon on safe, no round in chamber. Okay, let me say this again. Condition 4: weapon on safe, no magazine inserted, no round inserted, weapon on safe. Basically means if you have visually inspected the chamber or the cylinder or the barrel or the cylinder, ensuring that there are no rounds in the barrel, in the cylinders, or the chamber. Ooh, interesting, isn't it? Condition 3: magazine inserted, no round in chamber, weapon on safe. Basically, if you have the magazine inserted, you did not rack the charging handle back. The hammer is forward, and it's unsafe. It means that it's on an empty chamber, you're dry firing it. In revolvers, it's basically a cowboy load. Similar to a cowboy load. Basically, if you got a 6-shot revolver, you got 5 shots in it. And basically, the hammer is on an empty chamber. Condition 2 does not apply to certain weapons. Does not apply to certain weapons. And this is where I get a little bit sketchy. Now, condition 2 basically is more along the lines geared toward revolvers. Revolvers! Oh my goodness! Oh, wow, how ironic, Mr. Baldwin. Basically, condition 2 is you got a magazine inserted or full cylinder of rounds. Hammer is forward on a loaded round, which basically takes the cowboy load out of the picture, out of the equation. You've got full 6 shots. You've got full 6 shots. It's impressive, isn't it? So basically, if you're walking around and you manage to bump the hammer of a revolver or any type of firearm, you're basically going to chutter your bob in the next freaking century. Chutter bob yourself in a century, depending on where the firearm is pointed, at your foot, at your leg, at your behind, or at your Johnson. Condition 1. Here's the most interesting thing. You basically put a round in chamber. You've got a full magazine or a full cylinder. Hammer's back. It's ready to go. Weapon is, I do believe the weapon's at this point off of safe. Well, and it's ready to go. So one little pull of a freaking trigger, it's gonna go off. So, isn't that impressive, Hollyweird? So you don't run the risk of blowing the back of your freaking cameraman's head off. Now, we're gonna talk about the rules of firearm safety. We're gonna talk about the rules. 4 rules and 1 unspoken rule, which basically should be logical common sense. Oh, wait a minute, common sense isn't that common anymore. Well, treat, never keep. Treat every weapon as if it were loaded. So if somebody hands you a weapon and they say it is empty, you basically pull back the slide, lock it to the rear. There's a little thing on the side of the firearm. They call it a slide lock. You know, slide lock, it locks to the rear, make sure there's no magazine inserted, and you visually inspect the chamber of the freaking firearm. You know? Now, and ensure that it is clear. Sometimes you might want to stick the finger in there, depending on the firearm. But typically, you want to make sure, you want to rack the freaking slide, the bolt to the rear, and you want to inspect it visually. Sometimes tactilely, or something to that nature, where you basically stuck your finger in there and make sure there's no freaking round in the chamber. Basically, in the case of certain automatic handguns, you might want to basically remove the magazine and lift the barrel up to ensure that the freaking firearm is not loaded. Typically in most 22s, where you can actually open the barrel up, open the breech of the barrel, which the barrel is both the breech and the chamber. You know. Now, we're on treat. So basically, treat it as if we're loaded. Trust for verify. Basically, it's not loaded. Once it's handed to you, it's loaded until you visually and inspect the freaking firearm to ensure that it's not loaded. Okay, treat, never point a weapon at anything you don't intend to shoot. See, oh boy, if you don't intend to shoot that dog across the street, you don't want to point it at that dog across the street. If you don't want to shoot that person on the street, across the street, you don't point it at that person on the street. If you don't want to shoot the cameraman, you don't point it at the cameraman. You kind of get the gist of this thing. Keep your finger straight and off the trigger until you intend to fire. That goes for all these rules go for all firearms, no matter what you're doing. You basically keep your finger straight and off the trigger. So, if you manage to pull the hammer back and your finger slips on a hammer, in revolvers, you have half cock, and in modern revolvers, you have a safety block, preventing the hammer pin from striking the frickin' primer. Or you have basically the rotation of the revolver, depending on how far you manage to pull the hammer back. But still, you've got safety. You've got basically half cocked and full cock. If full cock don't work, half cock might catch it. Has a better chance of catching it. Basically, you keep your finger off the daggone trigger. And it goes especially for automatic weapons. Because if your finger's on the trigger, you bring it back full charge, and then you bring it forward, you can't get blamed for a negligent discharge. Well, somebody had a negligent discharge. You keep the weapon on safe until you intend to fire. So basically, unless you want to shoot yourself in the leg with a freaking weapon that's not on safe, by all means, shutter bob it up. Basically, keep it on safe until you intend to fire. Now, there are some weapons that you have to have it charged to even put it on safe. The M4, the AR-15, might be one of them. I know the M4 is one of them where you have to rack the charging handle back to the rear to charge the weapon to put it on safe. Wow. Basically, if you can't follow those four simple rules, well, you shouldn't be able to own a freaking firearm. Now, for the unspoken rule. The unspoken rule, the unwritten rule, which really probably should be written, know your target and what lies beyond it. Know your target and what lies beyond it. If you're shooting at this dog, or deer know that there's some sort of backstop to stop the round. Know that there's some sort of backstop. What is a backstop? A tree, a rock, a hillside. Know that there's something to stop the round to keep it from traveling. You know, even a .22 could travel a pretty freaking far distance, especially with the right trajectory. This magical word called trajectory. It's an impressive word, isn't it? Trajectory. Let's say it again one more time. That is the word for the day. Trajectory. Ah, yes. We're getting into freaking basic algebra, where I'm not very good with math, but even I understand trajectory. It is called path of trajectory. See, bullets don't fly straight. You have to arc the round to hit the target. It's called an arc. Now, it depends on the firearm and how far you want to fire the thing. You can arc it at anywhere between about roughly the most efficient way is about 10 to 30, 10 maybe to, depending on what your sights are set at, 10 to maybe 25-degree angle. But at a 45-degree angle, that's where the fun begins. Now you're getting into artillery type deals, where it goes up, it hits the peak of the arc, and it comes down. And the magic happens where it hits the ground. It's impressive, right? Well, if there's no backdrop, the round's going to keep going until it either runs out of momentum or energy or hits something. You know, well, in this case, in the case of Alec Baldwin, it was the forehead of the cameraman. Yeah. Well, it was the forehead of the cameraman. Now, what lies, or maybe whoever was behind the cameraman. See, 45 minutes to an hour is entirely too much time to, what's the word? Determine on whether or not you can see daylight through the back of a person's forehead, through the back of a person's cranium. I'm pretty sure that that if you could see daylight, that is a loaded round. Oh, concussion from the wadding. See, there's a reason why American Civil War and Revolutionary War actors don't use wadding. Because even the wadding is dead and dangerous. They typically use just the powder. The powder. You know? Typically. Oh, let's get into loading a Civil War era, Revolutionary War era. Let's start with the Civil War. Basically, you rip the paper, pour the freaking powder into the freaking barrel, take the wadding, ram it with the round into the barrel, pour a little bit of powder into the pan, and then you basically go to full cock and fire. Now, one of those types might be a little bit backwards, but then again, I'm not a Civil War enactor. I'm not a Revolutionary War enactor either. Let's go with the Revolutionary War. One where they basically made freaking priming caps. Impressive deal those things were. The great grandfather of your freaking basically automatic weapon. You basically take the freaking powder, pour it all down the barrel, take the paper with the round, and you push it down into the freaking barrel. And then you take a percussion cap, put it onto the nipple at half cock, and then you put it to full cock, then fire. Wow. Then let's go with the UK, the European Civil War reenactors. Now, they live their life a little bit on the edge, because instead of basically tossing the paper, they take the paper and stuff it into the frickin' barrel. Well, it's not directly a safety hazard, but can be a safety hazard, especially if it's packed down tight. Now, in American Civil War, Revolutionary War reenactors, they take the paper and they toss the paper wadding. Why do you need the paper wadding when you're not firing a round? The rest of the steps remain the same. Now, the reason I'm making this because apparently, if this manages to get to Hollywood, which would be impressive, which would be very impressive, or somebody who doesn't know a doggone thing about firearm safety and firearm knowledge, it's not guns that kill people, it's stupid people that kill people. It's completely and utterly stupid people that kill people. People who should not even be behind a firearm. It's the uneducated people that kill people. It's the people who are not mentally freaking stable who somehow get the hold of a freaking firearm that kill people. So, it's the mentally unstable that kill people. It's not law-abiding citizens. It's the mentally unstable. The ones that don't care about the law. It's like... And it's like this. One person screws up, everybody else has to pay. You know? It's wow. First off, okay, let's do a recap. We've already talked about the firearm conditions, all 4 conditions, the 4 safety rules, and the unwritten rule. We've talked about and we basically incorporated Alec Baldwin, even revolvers, and the Civil War and the Revolutionary War loading tactics, both in combat and reenacting on the European front and the American front. You know? We also talked about who manages to kill people. I hope this is about as good as my knowledge can get. It could actually improve a great deal, but if you're not learning, you're destined to fail. Basically, I have a career where if I'm not learning about firearm safety, I'm destined to fail. I have a lifestyle that if I'm not learning about firearm safety, I'm destined to fail. If you're not actively learning about firearm safety, no matter how many years you've been shooting a gun, and it doesn't matter if you were shooting a firearm from knee-high to a grasshopper, or knee-high to a grasshopper's Johnson, still, if you're not actively learning about firearm safety, your luck's going to run out eventually. This is Red Pill in the Wind with this little firearm safety class, or firearm safety class, signing off.